You know, when you see someone performing the slow, deliberate movements of something like Tai Chi, do you ever wonder if there's maybe more going on beneath the surface?
That's a really good question.
Like, could those graceful extensions and gentle pushes hold some kind of hidden power, something, beyond just physical exercise?
It's a really insightful way to put it, actually, and it hits directly at what we're about to explore today.
Exactly. Because in this deep dive, we're plunging into the intriguing world of Dim Mak, often called death point striking.
It's intense.
It does. Now, this isn't just like folklore. We're actually looking at a specific manual that delves into its principles.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating is the historical link it draws between Dim Mak and Tai Chi Chuan. Apparently, Tai Chi wasn't always known by that name,
Mm.
and some of its earlier forms hinted at this practice of, well, striking vital points. So it's not just about the physical movements then.
It certainly suggests a hidden layer, doesn't it? A
Mhm.
whole level of intent and knowledge within Tai Chi that most people doing it today might not even be aware of.
Yeah, what does that tell us about how martial arts evolve? How their purpose can shift over time?
Well, it's a powerful reminder that what we see on the surface, especially with something so old, might only be part of a much bigger picture.
Right.
And the manual we're diving into today, it aims to shed light on the principles, the techniques, and even the therapeutic uses of Dim Mak.
Healing too. Okay.
Yeah. But it's important to say right off the bat, the book itself has a strong warning. It stresses how dangerous these techniques can be and the absolute need for expert guidance.
Good disclaimer.
Definitely. We should also acknowledge Karen Poshert, who apparently helped make a complex manuscript much more readable.
Ah, good to know.
So our goal here for you listening is to kind of pull out the core understanding of Dim Mak from this source.
Hmm.
Try to separate, the sensational stuff from the actual concepts without getting totally bogged down in detail.
Sounds good. So where does this art actually come from, according to this manual?
Okay, so the preface gives some valuable context. The author points out that how most people see Tai Chi today, it's largely drifted away from its historical connection to Dim Mak
Yeah.
and away from its old reputation as a potentially deadly fighting art.
Which is probably the furthest thing from most people's minds when they watch Tai Chi now. They see gentle, flowing exercise. Right, not something lethal.
Exactly. But the preface tells this compelling story about Chang Sung Feng. He was a famous acupuncturist, lived around the late 13th century,
Okay.
and he's credited with developing a fighting art specifically designed to incapacitate opponents, not necessarily to kill them.
Ah, interesting distinction.
And according to this manual, that art eventually evolved into what we now call Tai Chi Chuan. And its original, deeper meaning was intrinsically linked to Dim Mak.
Wow, that's a pretty radical idea. Does the manual give other examples of this sort of hidden aggression?
It does.
And were Tai Chi practitioners back then generally aware of this, like, dual nature? Or was it a secret?
Well, the manual suggests that many of those seemingly harmless pushing hands, movements in Tai Chi forms, they aren't just about balance.
Oh.
They are, in fact, strikes aimed at specific acupuncture points. The author even suggests the usual interpretation might be a simplification, or maybe even a deliberate cover-up.
Really? Like what?
Well, for instance, the play guitar posture in Tai Chi. It's presented as potentially involving strikes to points on the forearm, while also hitting the knee joint.
Huh.
They even mention the pericardium point, Niguan, on the inner wrist, pointing out how sensitive it is. The implication is that the whole sequence could be like a hidden system of strikes.
So it's not just knowing where to hit, but how you hit, and maybe hiding those strikes in a gentle-looking flow.
That seems to be a key idea, yeah. The introduction expands on this, talks about the broader history of Chinese martial arts and how Dim Mak fits in. It mentions Chang Sanfeng again, working with acupuncturists to find vulnerable spots and to understand the directional flow of energy, or qi.
Key, right, the vital life force idea.
Exactly. For anyone new to that, qi is seen in this context as the life energy flowing through channels, or meridians, in the body.
So it wasn't just finding weak spots, but understanding how energy moves through these paths.
Precisely. And this Dim Mak knowledge, historically, it was guarded very closely,
Makes sense.
often passed down only within families or to the best students. The manual specifically mentions Yang Luchan, who founded the Yang style of Tai Chi, says he mastered Dim Mak.
Ah, the founder himself.
But, over time, the real understanding faced challenges. Things got diluted, maybe, and the hidden meanings of Dim Mak became less known.
It sounds like a really vital piece of martial knowledge that was kind of at risk of being lost.
The introduction even tells this story about a big meeting of Taiji masters. Apparently, a decision was made then.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
They reportedly agreed to teach the physical movements of Taiji openly, but to keep the dangerous Dim Mak stuff secret.
Ah, preserve it for a select few.
Kind of, yeah. Preserve the deeper understanding while still offering a public version. But apparently, one master, Yang Shuhao, disagreed.
Oh.
He chose to teach a smaller group the real thing, including the Dim Mak.
So a split in how it was taught. Some focused on health, others kept the more serious combat side hidden.
Exactly. And the author of this manual, they emphasized their own training lineage through someone named Zhang Yuchen, who apparently knew both Dim Mak and acupuncture really well.
So that connection is key.
Yeah, it reinforces this idea that every single movement in a traditional Tai Chi form could be linked to specific and potentially dangerous Dim Mak points.
Wow. It's like finding a secret language hidden in the movements. Okay, so we have this history, this gentle art with a potentially a not-so-gentle past. But how does Dim Mak actually work? What are the basic principles?
Right. Chapter 2, called Feijing, the engine of Dim Mak, gets right into that. The core idea here is Feijing.
Fadging.
Yeah, it translates roughly to explosive power or energy release. The author argues that without this, you don't have real Dim Mak. Just hitting points with muscle isn't enough.
Okay, so it's not just where you hit, but the kind of force you use.
Exactly. The manual says the whole body can be used as a weapon when you apply this Feijing while striking Dim Mak points.
Yeah.
And it introduces this concept of using adverse ki.
Adverse ki.
Yeah, the idea is to disrupt the opponent's internal energy flow when you hit them. Remember ki, the life force flowing through channels.
Right.
Adverse ki is like disrupting that flow, reversing it maybe. It's rooted in traditional Chinese medicine ideas about balance. Think of it like suddenly blocking a water pipe or sending a sludge back the wrong way.
Okay, I think I get it. The book also mentions a specific posture, the sea-back. What's that about?
Ah, yes, the sea-back posture. It's presented as crucial for generating what they call fighting ki.
Fighting ki.
Yeah. The author compares it to how animals stand when they fight, and even mentions Bruce Lee's style as an example. It's about this kind of primal posture, making the body ready.
Okay.
It's linked to the idea of the reptilian brain, the instinctive part accessing faster, less thought-out fighting responses. The manual suggests this posture helps you react more instinctively, maybe helps you stay grounded and ready.
So like tapping into a more primal, instinctual level of reaction?
Sort of, yeah. Then the manual lists 4 specific types of forging.
4 types.
Yep, closed, shaking forging, inch forging, vibrating forging, and something called no shadow kick. Seems like different ways to generate and deliver this explosive energy.
4 different ways to create this power. And you mentioned an analogy to illustrate this adverse ki.
Yes, to really get across the kind of impact we're talking about. The author compares forging the power of this adverse ki to high-frequency electricity.
Wow.
It suggests an energetic hit that goes way beyond just physical force, explaining how seemingly small strikes could have huge internal effects.
Okay, got it. So we understand the link to Tai Chi, the Feijing principle, disrupting energy flow. Now, how do you actually use Dim Mak in a real situation? Chapter 3 apparently covers that.
That's right. Chapter 3, How to Use Dim Mak. It stresses that this isn't just memorizing points, it's a whole combat system.
Okay.
A key thing it talks about is using that reptilian brain, relying on natural, instinctive reactions in self-defense, not just choreographed moves from dojo sparring.
Right, because real fights aren't like sparring.
Exactly. And that sea-back position comes up again as a way to find inner stillness, which they say is vital for that instinctive reaction.
So bypassing conscious thought and reacting more fundamentally when threatened.
That's the idea the manual puts forward, a more intuitive, immediate response. It also introduces eagle vision.
Eagle vision, what's that?
Using your peripheral vision mainly, keeping awareness of everything the opponent does without locking your focus onto one spot.
That sounds tricky. Perceiving everything without focusing on anything specific, how do you train that?
Well, the book describes a drill. You touch points on a partner, but you keep your eyes focused on a point behind them.
Ah, to broaden your awareness.
Right, pick up subtle cues without tunnel vision. The chapter also touches briefly on kicks in Dim Mak, again emphasizing striking instantly when you get an opening in range.
No hesitation. Just act when the moment's right.
That's the principle. Finally, Chapter 3 talks about opening techniques.
Opening techniques.
Strategies to attack before the opponent is fully set. It references something called Long Har Chuan, or dragon prawn boxing.
Dragon prawn boxing, okay.
One example given is the vertical method. It involves a block that flows immediately into a strike, maybe hitting Neg1, that's PC6 on the forearm, or stomach 9 on the neck.
So create a quick vulnerability and boom, hit a vital point. It's starting to sound like a very efficient, targeted way of fighting.
Definitely. Which leads us straight into Chapter 4, the points and what they do.
The specifics.
Exactly. This is where the manual lists the main Dim Mak points for fighting, supposedly drawing from a point location and point dynamics manual. But interestingly, it also stresses how important it is for martial artists to understand the healing uses of these same points.
That's fascinating, that duality. The points for fighting can also heal, suggest a really deep, connected understanding of the body's energy systems.
It really does. So the chapter details numerous points all over the body. For each one, it usually describes where it is, what happens if you strike it in a fight. Could be anything from draining energy to knockout, heart stoppage, even death,
Yikes.
and any known antidotes. It also throws in intriguing details like maybe a delayed effect from hitting stomach 9 or instant death from hitting conceptor vessel 14.
Instant death. That sounds incredibly serious.
It really underscores the potential danger here. The manual also introduces the kun, C-U-N, as the traditional measurement unit to find these points accurately.
Kun, how does that work?
Think of it like using your own body parts to measure on yourself. Like the width of your thumb knuckle or the width of your fingers together, it personalizes the map.
Okay, a personalized map of weak spots. Can you give us a couple more examples of these points and what the manual claims they do?
Sure. Let's take bladder 6. It's on the side of the head, slightly forward, about maybe your thumb's width from the midline.
Okay.
Striking this, the book says, drains energy from the rest of the body, maybe causes disorientation. The antidote involves crouching down and rubbing the point from back to front.
So even the fix is specific to the point.
Seems so. Another one is stomach 9. On the neck, either side, just below the Adam's apple.
Right on the neck, okay.
A strike here, even moderately hard, is called a classic KO point. Might cause a big drop in blood pressure, unconsciousness, and interestingly, the manual notes a possible delayed effect, potentially a stroke and death years later.
Years later. That's a sobering thought.
It really is. The antidote mentioned involves gently touching and squeezing gallbladder 20, which is at the base of the skull.
Okay. What about that instant death one? Conceptor vessel 14.
Right, CV14. It's on the midline of the abdomen, maybe 7 thumb widths above your navel, right over the little bone at the bottom of the sternum, the xiphoid process.
Got it.
This one is flat out labeled an instant death point. Why? Potential for immediate cardiac arrest. The manual even mentions athletes getting hit there and dying right on the field.
Wow.
The listed antidote is CPR.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. That really drives home the lethal potential. Maybe one more.
Okay, gallbladder 20. We mentioned it as part of the stomach 9 antidote. It's at the back of the skull, either side, in those hollows where the skull meets the neck muscles.
Okay, I know the spot.
It's described as a classic revival point. Often the first one used if someone's knocked out, you apply pressure upwards. If that doesn't work, then CPR.
So some points knock you out, others might bring you back. It really is a double-edged sword, this knowledge.
Absolutely.
And it's vital we repeat the manual's own strong warning about how extremely dangerous this stuff is.
Cannot stress that enough. The author repeats it constantly. Extreme caution needed. Absolutely requires expert supervision if anyone even thinks about exploring these techniques. This is purely informational.
Definitely. Okay, so we've hit the history, the core principles like fojing, how it might be used in combat, and some specific, frankly scary, vital points. But the manual also has a chapter on the healing art of Dim Mak. That seems almost like a contradiction given the name.
It does seem that way, but it's actually presented as a really crucial part of the art. Chapter 7 explains that using Dim Mak for healing is considered the highest level of mastery.
The highest level.
Yeah. The philosophy seems to be, once you deeply understand how to affect these points martially, you can then use that same knowledge for healing.
So, same map of the body, totally different intention.
Precisely. But the manual stresses you need to build up your own internal energy, your ki, first, through practices like Qigong, before you try healing others.
Qigong again?
Yeah, it briefly outlines 3 main kinds. Qigong for self-healing, medical Qigong for healing others, and martial arts Koan.
Okay.
There's even a story in there about a student using Qigong principles for self-defense and resilience in a tough spot. Qigong seems foundational for both the fighting and the healing sides here. The goal is always getting that natural internal energy, qi, flowing freely through the meridian.
So making sure energy flows smoothly for health and for martial ability.
That's the core idea presented. The chapter then gives several daily healing techniques.
Like what?
Things like pressing specific points on your wrists for overall balance or certain points on the back for kidney health. The stated goals are like improving sleep, boosting energy, helping digestion, basically self-acupressure based on Dim Mak points.
That makes a lot of sense. Using the point knowledge for wellness instead of harm.
Exactly. And it even describes a heart starter technique.
A heart starter? Seriously?
That's what it's called. Involves pressing stomach 11 and using a specific slipping, arcing motion over bladder 14 and 15. It's presented as a potential way to revive someone in cardiac arrest.
Wow. That's a bold claim. Really shows the potential power attributed to these points.
It really does.
It all seems to tie together, doesn't it? The fighting art, the healing art, both coming from this really deep understanding of vital points and energy flow.
Absolutely. The manual gives this holistic view where understanding the body's vulnerabilities also gives you the potential to heal significantly.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up this deep dive into the manual on Dim Mak. We've looked at its history, potentially hidden within Tai Chi.
Right, with its earlier forms hinting at striking vital points.
We got into the core principle of Fujing, that explosive energy needed for real Dim Mak.
Crucial element, according to the text.
We learned about specific vital points all over the body, each with potentially dangerous martial uses, but also sometimes corresponding healing applications.
And that fascination duality.
And we touched on practices like Qigong being foundational, building the energy needed for both fighting and healing within this system.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of the key ideas we pulled from the manual.
It really makes you think, though, doesn't it? This whole idea of subtle energy points and what they can do. How might knowing that change how we see the human body? Its vulnerabilities, yes, but also its potential for healing.
It definitely prompts some reflection.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the potential hidden inside movements that look so gentle, like in Tai Chi. What else is going on there?
That's a really profound question to sit with. This exploration definitely suggests there might be deeper levels to understanding the body than we usually consider.
Absolutely. And hey, if this deep dive has got you curious, remember, this is just scratching the surface based on one source. There's so much more out there to explore.
Yeah.
The history of martial arts, traditional Chinese medicine, Qigong practice, if you want to dig deeper into these fascinating ideas.